In 2005, Shaun Alexander ruled the NFL. He won MVP, set the single-season touchdown record, and led Seattle to its first ever Super Bowl appearance. But just 2 years later, he was out of the league. So, what happened? Was it injuries, bad luck, or was there something deeper? To find out, we have to rewind to his senior year of high school, when he exploded for 3,166 yards and 54 touchdowns, shattering state records and putting recruiters across the country on notice. Programs like Michigan and Notre Dame came calling, but Alexander chose Alabama. Soon after arriving on campus, Shaun made an impact. As a redshirt freshman, he set a school record with 291 rushing yards in a single game against LSU. From there, he only got better. Over 4 seasons, Alexander became one of the most productive backs in Crimson Tide history. By the time he left Tuscaloosa, he was the school's all-time leading rusher with 3,565 yards and 41 touchdowns. But it wasn't just the numbers. He had a flair for the big moments, the kind of player who could carry an offense when it mattered most. NFL scouts saw him as an every down back with star potential. So when the 2000 draft rolled around, the Seattle Seahawks selected Shaun Alexander with the 19th overall pick, making him the 3rd running back taken off the board. When Shaun got to Seattle, he wasn't handed the keys right away. The Seahawks already had a veteran back in Ricky Watters, so as a rookie, Alexander just sat and learned and waited. He barely saw the field, finishing with just 64 carries all season. But in 2001, everything changed. When Watters went down with an injury, Alexander stepped into the starting role and never looked back. In Week 9 against the Oakland Raiders, Alexander officially arrived. In that game, he rushed for a franchise record 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. He finished that season with 1,318 yards and 14 touchdowns, leading the entire NFL in rushing scores. And the crazy part? That was just the beginning. In 2002, Alexander put up 1,175 rushing yards and 18 total touchdowns. But there was one night that defined his season and made NFL history. On Sunday Night Football against the Vikings, Alexander went nuclear. In just the first half of the game, he scored 5 touchdowns. That's right, 5 trips to the end zone in only 30 minutes of football. By 2003, Shaun Alexander wasn't just good. He was automatic. Another 1,400-yard season and another 16 touchdowns. You could pencil him in for production every single week. And in 2004, he took it up a notch. Alexander rushed for 1,696 yards and 20 touchdowns, finishing just 1 yard short of winning the rushing title. Literally, 1 single yard away from leading the entire NFL. But here's the thing, despite putting up these insane numbers, Alexander wasn't exactly a household name. He wasn't flashy like LaDainian Tomlinson or a bruiser like Jamal Lewis. He wasn't on magazine covers or doing crazy touchdown dances in the end zone. He just quietly kept piling up yards and touchdowns for the Seahawks, a team that wasn't exactly front page news at the time. But that all changed in 2005. Because that season, Shaun Alexander didn't just play like one of the best backs in football. He played like the best player in the NFL. It all started in Week 3 against the Cardinals, when Alexander exploded for 140 yards and 4 touchdowns. Suddenly, people around the league started paying attention. In Week 5 against the Rams, he went for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns, helping Seattle grab a huge division win. And then came Week 6 against the Texans, the game that felt like a national announcement. Alexander shredded Houston's defense for 141 yards and 4 touchdowns. 4! He made it look effortless, finding the end zone over and over again. The Seahawks put up 42 points that night, and everyone around the league suddenly had the same thought. Maybe this quiet guy in Seattle is actually the best running back in football. But he wasn't done. Not even close. By midseason, Alexander was unstoppable. In Week 9 against the Cardinals, he dropped 173 rushing yards and a monster 88-yard touchdown run, the longest of his career. In Week 10 against the Rams, he did it again, 165 yards and 3 touchdowns. Seattle won 31-16, and suddenly the Seahawks weren't just a playoff contender. They were one of the best teams in the NFC. As you guys know, I talk about a ton of iconic NFL moments on this channel. But what if I told you you could collect those moments? Well, that brings me to the sponsor of today's video, NFL All Day. Simply put, NFL All Day is making the trading cards of the future. With traditional football cards, there might be hundreds of thousands printed of a certain player's rookie card. But on All Day, there were fewer than 3,000 Jaden Daniels rookie collectibles made last year. One even nearly sold for $10,000. And this isn't just collecting for fun. Through the Playbook game mode, fans can use their moments to win big. You can earn prizes like NFL game tickets, meet and greets with NFL legends, and VIP experiences like announcing draft picks. One of the biggest advantages of digital collecting is the flexibility it offers. Collectors can buy and rip packs on demand and trade with other collectors around the world. Also, on All Day, if you rip a pack and aren't thrilled with your pulls, you can instantly trade in your moments for a buyback offer. No waiting, no hassle. And guys, there's no better time to start on NFL All Day. Hit the link down below and you'll get a free pack guaranteed to include a moment from an NFL star. The future of collecting is digital. NFL All Day is where the NFL lives online. Click the link, grab your free pack, and see for yourself why fans everywhere are all in. And then came the moment that proved Shaun Alexander had finally broken through. In late November, for the first time in his career, Shaun Alexander was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. The headline, "Do you know his name? Hint, he's the leading rusher in the NFL on the best team in the NFC." Then in the bottom right corner it read, "Answer, he's Shaun Alexander, previous anonymous superstar of the Seattle Seahawks." It was perfect. For years, he had been putting up monster numbers in Seattle while the rest of the country barely noticed. But now, the spotlight was on him. And with the entire NFL watching, Alexander didn't slow down. In Week 16 against the Colts, he tied the single-season rushing touchdown record with his 27th score. 1 week later, against the Packers, he broke it, finishing the season with 28 total touchdowns, the most in NFL history at the time. By the end of the regular season, his numbers were insane. 1,880 rushing yards, 27 rushing touchdowns, and 1 receiving score. He led the league in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and total touchdowns. Shaun Alexander wasn't just good. He was named NFL MVP, the first Seahawk to ever win it. But his story wasn't finished yet, because that season, the Seahawks weren't just playing for regular season awards. They were about to make the deepest playoff run in franchise history. In the divisional round against Washington, Seattle's Super Bowl hopes nearly took a devastating hit. Alexander suffered a concussion and was forced to leave after just 9 carries for 20 yards. For a moment, it felt like the entire season was slipping away. But even without their MVP, the Seahawks fought. Matt Hasselbeck stepped up, the defense tightened, and Seattle held on for a gritty 20-10 win. The following week in the NFC Championship game against the Panthers, Alexander came back with a vengeance. He bulldozed Carolina's defense for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, powering Seattle to a decisive win and clinching the franchise's first ever Super Bowl appearance. In the big game, the Seahawks were set to clash with the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team anchored by one of the most dominant defenses in the league. Despite the tough matchup, Alexander did his part, rushing for 95 yards, the most by any player in the game. But the game didn't go Seattle's way. They had costly penalties, missed key opportunities, and had to deal with one of the most controversial officiating performances in Super Bowl history. Literally, the ref from that game later came out and said he messed up 2 calls in the 4th quarter that impacted the game and that he's had tons of sleepless nights over it. It was all too much for Seattle to overcome, and the Steelers walked away with a 21-10 victory. But what no one realized that night was that was the peak. The very top of the mountain for Shaun Alexander. From here on out, his career would never be the same. The very next season, everything started to unravel. In 2006, Alexander signed a massive 8-year, $62 million contract extension, making him the highest paid running back in NFL history at the time. But paying their MVP had consequences. Suddenly, Seattle didn't have enough money to keep everyone. Not long after, All-Pro guard Steve Hutchinson left in free agency, signing a blockbuster deal with the Vikings. Losing him was devastating. Hutchinson had been one half of the most dominant guard-tackle duo in football alongside Walter Jones. Together, they opened up the holes that made Alexander so dangerous. Without Hutchinson, the Seahawks' offensive line just wasn't the same. And then disaster struck. In week 3, Alexander suffered a broken foot, an injury that sidelined him for 6 games. He returned later in the year, but the burst was gone. Defenders were meeting him at the line of scrimmage instead of 5 yards downfield. Still, he fought through the pain and finished with 896 yards and 7 touchdowns. Solid numbers for some players, but a steep fall from the MVP heights he had just reached a season before. Years of being Seattle's workhorse had taken a toll. From 2001 to 2006, Alexander had carried the ball a total of 1,905 times, the second most by any player in the league during that stretch. Season after season, he was asked to grind out tough yards and take hit after hit. By 2007, the mileage was impossible to ignore. The injuries piled up, the burst was totally gone, and defenses no longer feared him the same way. He played in 13 games, but managed just 716 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns, averaging only 3.5 yards per carry. The Seahawks still made the playoffs, but Alexander was no longer the unstoppable weapon he once was. After that season, just 2 years removed from winning MVP, the Seattle Seahawks released Alexander. He couldn't find a team to sign him before the start of the 2008 season, but when Washington's backup running back went down with a knee injury, they signed Shaun Alexander. He only logged 11 carries before being cut by the team a month later. That marked the end of his NFL career. Shaun Alexander's career has almost become a cautionary tale. The heavy workload, the injuries, the loss of a future Hall of Fame O-lineman, it all combined to wear him down quicker than anyone expected. For a player that once seemed unstoppable, it ended far too soon. Still, in Seattle, his legacy lives on. He remains the franchise's all-time leader in rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and total touchdowns. He was the first Seahawks player to ever win MVP, and for a brief window in the mid-2000s, he wasn't just one of the best players in the league. He was the best. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video over here. It's a very similar story, but the player was a wide receiver.